3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
And we're live. How are you doing? How's the day been? What have you been up to all week?
It's been quite a nice day actually. I actually went for a run and I took the dog for a walk and I answered some emails and did some posting, and today seemed to go quite well. Like normally. So I don't know whether it's the weather. I'm not entirely sure.
Maybe it's because we're coming out of lockdown. Hopefully, well, I mean we have, but hopefully that's going to start pushing forward some better mental health across everywhere in general.
Yeah. I think the third lockdown for me was the hardest one. I think the first lockdown, I remember it happening, and I remember kind of in the March time, and I think for a lot of people it was quite nerve-wracking, but I think for a lot of people it's like, oh, we can just stay at home and things like that, and it was sunny and we could sit in the garden. And then kind of the second lockdown came around Christmas time, but you somewhat had something to look forward to around Christmas. And then the third lockdown happened and you were just shut in your house. It was dark, it was miserable, you couldn't even do anything, couldn't even go for a walk because it was too cold, so you couldn't even kind of socialize if you maybe walking your dog and things like that. So I think them kind of coming out and saying, yes, we're going to start to come out of lockdown, and obviously the pubs and stuff are now open, and like today everyone is out walking, and it's kind of nice, and it's more, I think you've got things more to look forward to. Hopefully we can actually get on a plane and go somewhere at some point.
Soon enough, yeah. I had a holiday booked going to America. I've always wanted to go to America. I don't know why. I've just always wanted to go to America, and we had it booked for this year. Kind of like, you know, you have to predict the fact that there's COVID. Like booking a holiday during COVID can go one way or another. But, you know, we booked it, and I think that it's cancelled. They haven't formally cancelled it, but they said that there's a high likelihood of it being cancelled. But, you know, fingers crossed when May 15th rolls around, or May 11th, something like that.
Is that when he's announcing it or something?
I think that's when everything's gone. All the restrictions are locked, like gone up. Oh, might be June. I'm not entirely sure. I don't pay enough attention, to be honest. But yeah, I have this theory, right, that holidays in general are manufactured. So, you know, Christmas is manufactured to a degree, and the dates are all. If you look at holidays generally, they all fall around the times where it's cold and it's dark. Halloween, bonfire night, Thanksgiving in America, Christmas, Valentine's Day. They are all centered around winter times when it's cold and when it's dark. And I feel as though that's to keep people in high spirits during those times, because you have seasonal effectiveness disorder, and you have a few different things that will keep you a bit down and a bit drowsy, especially in Britain in the north. It will get cold and dark and grey very fast. And when you look at summer, you know, apart from my birthday, there isn't really much going on in summer. Apart from, you know, hot days and beer gardens. And I think that like that is counteractive of the fact that, you know, during the winter times and during when it's colder and when it's more dreary, they make up for it with the Halloweens, with the bonfire nights, with Christmas to look forward to. And that's been all it's been all dismantled with COVID. And especially as you say, you've got New Year's Eve and then you've got Christmas, and fortunately they weren't affected too much. We still managed to be allowed to go and see a few friends, and we still were managing to spend our nights watching the fireworks or anything like that. It wasn't terrible. But after that, it's lockdown, and it was lockdown when the only real thing that you could look forward to was Valentine's Day. And, you know, if you're in a relationship and there's not really anything else going on. So there's the fact that like you think we're coming out of lockdown, then we're not coming out of lockdown, then you go back into lockdown, and then it's just this whole swarm and a mess. And, you know, I think that they've put a roadmap in, and we're going to get out of lockdown soon enough. And I can't see them putting us back in. I can't see us just being happy with that. But speaking of lockdown, I know we spoke briefly about this last time, but my internet turned against me. So, so how? Because you know, I need to introduce you to some degree to people who may not know. So you have you started out as a watch business, and now you've moved into jewelry, but you started with watches and primarily Ellington timepieces. And the question for me would be that I already know the answer to because you told me, but the question is, how have you worked watches into people's homes and on people's wrists when people aren't going out and doing much socializing?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a weird one, really, because Ellington Timepiece, the way that I kind of created Ellington Timepiece was on a limited edition basis, because that was all I could afford. When I first started Ellington Timepiece, I had a limited amount of money, and to use that for me, I created a limited edition. So the first collection was named after Sheba, my German Shepherd, and I did 3 colours. And I did it as though, and I kind of marketed around the fact that the limited editions, you don't have to have them and wear them, like, you know, if you're more of a collector or that kind of thing. I mean, I was taking it down that route anyway. And it just so happened that over the kind of couple of years that people buy them for gifts, they buy them for themselves, they buy them because they want to wear them out. So when COVID happened, naturally, I think with all businesses, and I think through anything, you have to kind of go with it and kind of make your business work for any kind of situation. And I was kind of lucky in the sense that I've been an e-commerce business. COVID affected me in the way of getting them into retailers. You know, people weren't going into the high street and buying them and things like that. So I was always really an e-commerce website. So I had to kind of use the fact that we had a lockdown, and I thought, right, well, I'm online anyway, so people can still go online if they want to, and they can buy them. Now, we went into lockdown around, I think it was the end of March, so we were coming into spring at this point. And I had my own worries, thinking, well, are people going to still spend the money? Are people going to buy anything? And I think around that time, people didn't actually really know what was going on. We just kind of were told we have to stay at home and work from home. So people, after a few weeks, were sat on their phone, bored, you know, after they'd finished work, they went for a walk maybe, sat in the garden, but they're thinking, well, I just want to get on my phone and maybe just buy stuff. So people were still going online and still buying. So I thought, right, if they're not going to be wearing them going out, I'm going to kind of do it around the fact that they can buy them for gifts. It's always someone's birthday. It's always someone's anniversary. They can still buy online. And because I guess I'm the face of Ellington Timepiece, and the other worry was that I was getting messages saying from people, you know, are these being, you know, packaged properly? You know, you're wearing gloves and things like that. So I started uploading pictures of me wearing gloves and wiping the watches down and giving people that kind of reassurance that, yes, everything's fine. So anyway, summer kind of goes, and I'm still getting enough sales. And at that point, I'm thinking, right, I can start designing my next collection. So I started designing the Olympus Collection. And I started to build a buzz around this new watch line, and it's coming out in a couple of months. And I'm thinking, right, if I can get it out around September, October time. But because of COVID, with the manufacturing side, everything slowed down. So I was thinking, oh, right, everything slowed down. I've only got so many units of this collection. I'm still trying to build this buzz. So I thought I had to be clever about it. So I remember I had Hercules on the TV, the old Disney classic Hercules. And I put in little Easter eggs on social media. And I put the kind of drawings and stuff on the table. And I took a photo saying, busy day at home designing the collections, can you guess what maybe the next collection is? And nobody got it, because even though Hercules is on in the background, like Olympus, because they're based on Olympian gods. So I had to kind of just keep myself busy in that kind of sense. So I built this kind of excitement around the collections. And then anyway, September, October came, because the fact that the manufacturing side had slowed down, they weren't here. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to I need to get the orders in. I need to get the sales in to keep the business going. And I said, right, I'm going to do pre-order, which I'd never done before. So I was quite nervous about that. So I did pre-order, and straight away people were going online pre-ordering. And then a couple of weeks later, when they were supposed to get them, COVID was still kind of iffy a little bit. And so anyway, the manufacturing still slowed down, and then shipping slowed down. I'm thinking, oh God, this is the kind of nerve-wracking. And then Christmas came, the watches arrived, and I think because this was the second lockdown in England, I think people weren't really going out shopping around this time. I think people were still quite wary of it. So people were still going on Amazon, they were still going online. And lucky enough for me as an e-commerce business, the November and December sales in 2020 were increased by 257% compared to 2019, when we didn't even have, I didn't have COVID. So my sales did dramatically well compared to the year before. But then the third lockdown hit, Christmas had gone, everyone was told, there's another lockdown, so that's it. And everything slowed down again.
Yeah.
So really kind of lockdown has kind of had its peaks and troughs and all this sort of thing. And I think it's been like that for a lot of businesses.
Do you feel as though there's there is, it's economics 101 to some degree, but do you think there's been a benefit to the scarcity? Because if, for instance, so I was on your website recently, because you had a 2-for-1 deal, and I was actually looking to get I can't remember the name of it, to be honest, but it was it was a gold watch, and it was sold out, and now, but that, I remember that, and it's in my head because it's scarce, because it's not there. I know that when it comes back, I'm gonna go and buy one. I wanted to get one for myself and one for my girlfriend. Now, it's like, have you heard of De Beers? The Belgium company. They essentially have a monopoly on diamonds. And the way that it worked is, so you might think now that diamond is worth thousands and thousands of pounds. And we think that because diamonds are a rare earth element, but they're really not. Like, they really aren't. It's De Beers. They have a stronghold grip on all of the different mining industries across Western and Southern Africa, which is primarily where you get diamonds from. So because they own all of that, they essentially own all of the diamonds. They have all of the diamonds somewhere hidden, and then they have used clever marketing to essentially tell people that you need to get a diamond. It was essentially essential. It's essential for weddings. If you don't buy a diamond for your fiance, then you're not wealthy, or whatever it may be. And then they have increased that demand and then strongholded the scarcity. So that means that they can price it at whatever they like. And there's a big benefit to that when it comes to economics and business. And I think that certainly, even though you were saying that you may not have had the supply in, I think that it can be beneficial to some extent, because that scarcity will make people want it more, which, it's certainly one of them things. Do you feel as though there's a line where you strike a balance between this is a limited time offer, or there's only a few of these in stock, or I'm just going to be completely utilitarian and I'm just going to hand out as many watches to as many people as possible? Do you have to strike that balance, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's like you said there about going back to the diamond situation. It's almost like imprinted in people. It's like, I think marketing comes in almost everything. So going back to the diamond situation, they've kind of imprint people that, well, you do get an engagement ring and you do get a diamond and you do that, and if you don't do that, it means, do they love you as much? And it's just it's classed as marketing. And it's the same for Valentine's Day. They'll say you have to get flowers for Valentine's Day, or you have to get a card, or whatever the situation is. For me, the whole kind of marketing around, I guess, my product is that these are numbered editions and limited editions. So When I say that they're limited editions, it's because there is only limited availability of that product, and then they're gone. That's it. They are gone for life. So I guess from a collector's kind of point of view, or someone that's shopping for that unique thing that maybe no one else is going to have, it kind of pushes them to get it. The biggest thing I think with humans in general is that people want something more when they can't have it. Don't know why. I don't know the science behind it, but there's obviously some science behind it. But when you can't have something, you want it more. And I think that kind of goes around the whole limited editions with my brand, and in the sense that people who buy one watch from one collection will wait till the next one comes out. Also with these watches, you get kind of like, so from the Amare collection, you get a wax sealed authenticity certificate, and that comes with its own number. So that watch is your number. The idea when I it first started off with the fact that I couldn't afford loads and loads of units. So I had to make that work for me. When I did my little pop-up stand in the House of Fraser, and I was talking to people about my products, and I mean, I struggled horrendously with social anxiety. So how I managed to do it, I have no idea. Probably because I was talking about something that I loved and did myself. So, and I'd tell them, oh, well, there's only 100 of this colour available. And they would go, really? Like, that's it? And I'd say, yeah. So I'm only here for this weekend, or I'm only here today. Oh, so you won't be back? No. Oh, well, I'll go away and think about it. And I could guarantee you within 5 minutes they would be back, because I told them that I was only going to be here for the day, and there's only so many of these left available. Yeah,
so they felt as though, if I don't get this now, I'm not going to get this. And especially if, that's the thing, especially if something piques your interest and you like something, there's an element to some extent. If I went to House of Fraser and I went downstairs and I seen a t-shirt that I really liked, and I looked at it and I really liked it, and I thought that would really suit me, and I think that I really liked it. But I know for a fine fact, if it's there in House of Fraser, if either I can't afford it at the moment, or if I'm not too sure, or whatever it may be, I'm in a hurry, so I can't try it on, I know that I can go away and I can come back. Now, at that point of me leaving, there's a few things that can happen. Either I can just completely forget about it, or I can think, oh, yeah, that was cool, but I can't be bothered to go back to town to go to House of Fraser. Or I might think, oh, do you know what? I don't know if that would suit me. Or, oh, do you know what? I might like start getting a bit insecure and thinking about, oh, I'm not too sure or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I might actually go back and purchase it. Now, all of those circumstances where you don't go back, which is more than when you do come back, if you forget or you can't be bothered, or if you just change your mind, there's 3 different scenarios. Or you come back and you purchase it, or you should buy it online, but you still come back and purchase it. There's more reasons not to buy something when you leave the shop than there is to buy it. But if you're saying, I'm only here for today, I'm going to be gone, there's no more, then you're, it's like an ultimatum to some degree, but it's also telling people, look, like, you've got this, you like the look of it, and if you buy it now, and it's part of your collection, it's part of your style, it's on you as a person, it's going to work for you, or you're not going to, unfortunately, have the ability to buy this again at the moment. And I think that when you restrict the options down to purchase or don't purchase, a lot more people will go towards buying it, especially if they like it. Because if you give them the options and you give them the time and you give them the ability to go away and come back, it's just naturally going to lead to more and more people not coming into it. So there is definitely that balance where you're striking between, this is to some extent a scarce resource and this is a limited offer, and giving people the freedom to choose. Is there any has there been any times where, I mean, don't get me wrong, where you might not have sold a product very well, or a specific unit hasn't sold very well, and how have you managed to go around it? There's an interesting funny story about it's a French art gallery, I can't remember what it's called, but essentially they had a painting for sale and it was for around 10,000 euros and it wasn't selling. So what the art gallery done, which might be a bit counterintuitive, is they actually quadrupled the price and made it 40,000 euros. and you might think, why have they put the price up? And it's sold, but it's sold to somebody who wanted to spend money. If you're somebody who's wealthy and affluent and wants to spend money at an art gallery, and you see a relatively cheap painting for 10,000 euros, you might think, oh, I don't want to buy that. But the 40,000, the perception of value for art, it changes, and then they buy it, which seems counterintuitive, but it's kind of a clever way to market round. But yeah, have you ever been in a circumstance where a particular unit or a particular product hasn't sold very well? And if so, what's been your way of attempting or actually following through with getting that to sell?
That question itself takes me back to the House of Fraser, because you've got about, from the moment that you talk to somebody, you've got about a 10-second window to try and grab their attention. So whether that be a touch on the shoulder or hiya there, like that, or whether you are handing something physically to them, you've got about 10 seconds to get that person interested. Now, the first day that I did at the House of Fraser, that was my first time really showing people my product and showing what I had and things like that. So that day was kind of more of a testing one for me. The second day, I thought, right, this is my demographic. So when I first started Ellington Timepiece, I thought it was going to be 18 plus, but it turned out that actually my demographics for my business is late 20s, anywhere up to 30, up to 50, sorry. So when I was stood in the House of Fraser, I'm thinking, right, you look like kind of my demographics. You look like you would like this colour. So I would think, right, I've got about 10 seconds to go and get that person, get them over here and get them interested. I often read by body language. Now, 9 times out of 10, you can read by body language. After those 10 seconds, they are either going to think about it, they are going to buy it, or they're just generally not interested. And I wouldn't spend any more than 30 seconds for those that I knew after 10 seconds that they weren't interested. I just said, thank you for your time. So I'm thinking, I don't want to waste her time and I don't want to waste my time, because I've just missed a customer that I could have got there. So within those 10 seconds, if I know that they are going to purchase it, I will get that watch on that wrist and I will hand the mirror over and I will say, look how lovely that looks on you. Now, I often used the grey Sheba for that, because the grey Sheba was popular. Now, if they didn't like that colour, it didn't matter, because then I could say, well, I'll put this colour on you then and you might like that more. But because the grey Sheba was the most popular, I used that to get it on someone's wrist.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, and that's why I sold the collections, the units that I had in that House of Fraser, I sold out in one weekend, because I used that kind of sales tactic, really.
Yeah.
The colours that I could see that weren't selling very well, I'm thinking, right, it's the black strap. So I'm thinking, right, how can I sell the black strap? How can I get someone over? And I'm thinking, right, I've been targeting a lot of females. Maybe I should start targeting more males. And so I started to target more of an age gap that I would know that would probably wear a very minimalistic style watch with a black strap. So I was going for kind of age around 40, I guess, when I was looking at people. So I would go up to them and I would get them to buy the black one. So they would buy the black strap. If, for instance, like online, we have a certain colour that isn't selling very well, I think it's different in terms of how other people do it. I've done discounts, I've done buy one get one free, or buy one and get a jewelry piece half price, things like that. So you've always kind of got that options. I think that was a very, very clever idea in terms of making something that was only a certain amount and making it very, very expensive, because again, it goes back to that idea of, like, for instance, there's a watch that's £5, you think, I don't really really like it, it's £5.
Yeah.
You go then put that same watch in front of that same person maybe the next day when they're in a different frame of mind, and it's £500, and they say, why is that £500? And you say to someone, well, there's only 5 in the world, let's just say, I don't know, something like that. They're going to instantly think, oh my God, it's £500, there's only 5 in the world. If they're that way inclined, some people aren't really bothered about numbers. Some people think, oh, I'll be one of them only people. Bit like the iPhone. The iPhone is £1,000 plus, but it's not that expensive to make. But because everyone has one, and because it's in our face every single day, it makes a person want to buy it. So that's kind of, I guess that's a clever way of how salespeople work and how businesses work.
Yeah, there's something called the familiarity technique, and there was a study done. I don't know if it was in the UK, but it was. I think it was done in the UK, and I think that it was done on Persil. Do you know the clove washing thing? And they had they targeted a certain demographic, a geological demographic. Let's say the area of Kent, for instance, and then they also targeted an area close by. So let's say Essex. I know that they done it with roughly the same populations, roughly the same sales figures throughout the year, and they ran an experiment, and the experiment was, we're going to market to one geological demographic only through one medium. Now let's say that medium was radio. So just through radio alone, they done targeted advertising, and then in the second region they had a multifaceted approach. So they would target through radio, websites, and TV. Let's just say it's something along those lines, through video, radio, and actual online ads. Now, it makes sense that when you're going to be reaching, when you're going to be having more mediums and more arms of your advertisements, that you're going to bring in more people. But the general conclusion was, if you reach 100,000 people only through radio, you're less likely to get people to purchase your product, even if you reach the same number of people, but through 3 different mediums. Because if you're listening on the radio and you hear, I'm loving it, the McDonald's theme, and then you see that on telly, and then you see that on your phone, on YouTube, or in a news article, you become familiar to some extent with it. And the fact that you're becoming familiar with something subconsciously, you're more likely then to purchase it. So we're all familiar with a Twix, we're all familiar with Coca-Cola, we're all familiar with this, that, and the other. And it's why you can buy an iPhone and know that an iPhone's going to work. Like if you went onto Curry's now and you've seen a Samsung QLED TV, 72-inch, and it was £2,500, you know for a fine fact, if you buy that telly, it's going to be a good telly. Like you're going to get a good quality telly. But if you see on the same website, or even another website, but if you see the same specs, you know, QLCD, 75-inch, all those same specifications, but it's from some weird called TV Insider or something stupid like that, like some weird brand that you've never heard of, and it's sold at a drastically reduced rate, like £1,000. There's something that says to us, don't buy it if it looks like, because we're worried that there's going to be something that's dodgy about it, or there's something that can't be too good to be true, or whatever. It's that familiarity that we have with Samsung, for instance, that we know that if we buy from Samsung, they have a reputation to uphold, and we're familiar with it. Therefore, I trust Samsung more than this weird knockoff telly that has the same specs. And to some degree, that's counterintuitive. It's like if you go to Boots, for instance, and you buy paracetamol that costs £2 because it's got a brand name on it, when you could just buy paracetamol for 39p. All paracetamol is exactly the same, because the regulations behind creating medicines are so stringent that you can't have any other type of paracetamol. It is all just marketing. In that circumstance, it's counterintuitive. But in the circumstance where, you know, where you spend £2,000 on a telly off some weird Chinese knockoff website, and they send you a toy car, like, it makes sense. But it is about having that familiarity with something. And I do think that, as you were saying, becoming more and more familiar with certain products is definitely a good route to go down. Now, I was going to ask, just moving on a little bit, I've realized that watches in particular it's more about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though it's more about design and aesthetics than it is utility. Now, if there are some watches that have great utility, like an Apple Watch, for instance, or you have watches that may tell you whereabouts the sun is in relation to the moon, or where the celestial bodies are when they line up, or you might have one that tells you, and you know, that's really cool and it's a quirk. But when it comes to actual utility, a lot of watches, you know, you can tell the time on your phone, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
And I do think that is that right? Am I right in thinking that watches are now more about aesthetics and design as opposed to utility? And do you feel as though there is a utility to watches that people are overlooking?
See, yeah, in a way, I can kind of guess what you said, because you can look at your phone and you can, you know, see the time and things like that. So I think that over the kind of the last, and let me just say as well, I've only known kind of the watch industry just within the last 3 years. When I started Ellington Timepiece, I had no idea about watches, factories, the history of watches, where they came from, anything like that. I only ever kind of had watches around my life because of my granddad. My granddad was obsessed with watches. I was always seeing him wearing them, always seeing him change the batteries and things like that. My kind of, when I first started on the Timepiece, it wasn't, I didn't really go onto the internet and kind of research it and things like that. What actually happened is that a couple of months before I lost my job, I wanted a watch. For some reason, I can't really remember why I wanted a watch, but I just wanted a nice looking watch. But the kind of watches that I was looking at were ranging from anywhere from 150 to like 250, 280. And I didn't see anything special. Like, I didn't see anything that was of my taste or special, kind of what I wanted. And I knew when I kind of lost my job and I wanted to kind of do something and I wanted to get into fashion, I wanted to start my own business. I had a little YouTube channel. I was blogging with clothes, things like that. And I decided to do watches. So when I designed the first collection, minimalistic kind of designs were starting to come in. So this was around kind of 2017, 2018. The whole minimal design, and the factory kind of got in touch with me and they showed me this minimalistic white face. I've actually got one of the watches over there, but white face with a rose gold kind of case and crown and things like that. And then the straps were just leather straps. And so I had to kind of design the first collection based on unisex because I couldn't afford multiple units. So I thought, right, what colours are unisex? So I thought grey, black, tan, men and women can wear them. And the people that were purchasing them, it wasn't on a kind of mechanical, yes, it told the time, but it didn't have kind of the date or the second. It was just literally like a normal kind of watch face. And people were buying it because they were saying things like, I'm going to a wedding, or I'm going to a birthday, or I'm wanting it for summer and things like that. Whereas the Olympus and the Amari collection from the male side of it does tell the date, and it tells the day and things like that. So as based on the actual design itself, it can actually be used. But I do think there is kind of a statement around watches. A lot of people will buy watches to kind of make a statement. Now, my watches are thousands of pounds. They're not kind of marketed at that. You know, people, if they want that kind of watch, they'll go to Rolex. Or, you know, because that to them, that's their show off. That's their finish to their accessory. Now, I wanted to kind of brand mine for unique, beautiful, good quality watches for a price that's not extortionate, like, you know, £1,000 plus. So people are buying my watches, I believe, is more as gifts, but also to wear for themselves for those special occasions, because the colours that I have for my watches can go with any occasion and any kind of wear that you've got on. So, for instance, the one that I've got on now is Hera. So this is a rose gold and blue dial. What to say? Yeah. So this is one of our new watches. So this is Hera from the Olympus collection. Now, with my earrings and with what I'm wearing, it looks lovely and it looks nice. Yeah. But if I'm on a night out, or when that happens, if I go to the pub, 9 times out of 10, I will keep my phone in my pocket because I don't want to leave it somewhere and lose it. And if just by happen someone says, "What's the time?" As long as I'm not too drunk, I can go like this and look where someone's trying to get the phone out. Yeah. So I do think there is a purpose still for watches, but I would say about 80% it is an investment. It is a kind of a statement, depending on the watch, and I feel like it finishes the full outfit. Yeah, I think that as a society, we're losing that that animation of looking down at your wrist. There is something a bit sweet about doing that. I remember in uni,
you know, somebody says, "Oh, you just think what's that like that?" And I don't know, there's something like we laugh a bit, but there is something like just kind of suave about it to some extent, and it is all about that perception or story that we tell ourselves, and even if it's something small and insignificant that we might not think about, like just looking like that and having the ability to do that and thinking that it is kind of it's kind of cool to do that to some extent, as it sounds, it's a bit like Uber, for instance, when the creator of Uber, I can't remember his name, but when he created it, the inspiration for Uber came from the fact that he was watching James Bond, and he's seen James Bond pull out a remote device and press a button, and then the car would show up at his house, and he thought, how cool would it be if we could do that with taxis and cars? You know, you pull out your phone and you press the button, and then it's at your house. And there's a lot of genius in that. There's like not only being able to press a button and get a taxi, but also to track it and to be able to see a map and the car on its way and where you are in relation to the car. It allows you to time your leaving as if you're James Bond. It lets you, if you're in a pub and it's raining outside and you know it's there, it's outside, you can stand up and leave and go straight into the taxi, as opposed to standing in the freezing cold, going in and out every 2 minutes, checking out it's a taxi, and then and then it takes away that embarrassment that you might have of like doing that, and it's that element of ego that we just slip in there on top as a bit of a sprinkle with all of the other utility that or the aesthetics in terms of watches that comes with it. And I think that is quite interesting. I'm going to backpedal a little bit because I remember that you were saying that in House of Fraser. Well, just one quick question. So how long did that campaign last for? Was it a week? Was it a day? Was it a month? How long were you in there for?
So I was in the kind of around, I think if I can remember correctly, it was around May time. I had one weekend and I went in there, and I think I sold about 10 units. That was my first try. That was me with social anxiety, trying my hardest to try and talk to people to tell about my brand. And I remember getting back in contact with the manager, and I just said, look, would you just give me a full August bank holiday weekend, and would you allow me to be in there? And he said, go on then, I'll let you be in, because you did a really good job, and you know the customers were happy with you. You were professional, so we don't mind having you in. Yeah. And so I went in, and the August bank holiday weekend, I said, right, I'm going to get balloons. I'm going to get some treats that people can eat. I'm going to get some schlurs so people can drink. And I built this kind of thing around me to get people's attention, to make them look at me and think, oh, what's that over there? Now, I'll never ever forget this, because the manager came over to me. This was when Mike Ashley bought the House of Fraser. Right, yeah. It was around that time. Yeah. The manager came over to me and I said, after this weekend, do you think I could do another one? Just like have another weekend. And he said to me, he said, Terry, I didn't dare ring you up and tell you that you couldn't even be here today. I said, what do you mean? He said, because Mike Ashley doesn't do pop-ups in his kind of thing. So the manager said, I am giving you this weekend to do what you need to do and get some sales and things like that. And I was at a period at that point thinking, right, I need to try and get as many sales as I can, because I want to keep this business going. I think for me in those kind of months, I was thinking, this isn't just some little hobby that I'm doing. I want to make a business out of this because I'm doing so well. I didn't think I was going to do as well as what I did, because along with my confidence and my lack of knowledge and things like that, I didn't think I was going to go for that long. And I said, right, I need to sell this amount of units because this will buy the samples and this will get the next collection, the Amare here. So I was so determined to get it, to do it. And I think this comes into it with anything that you do. I think when you become passionate, when that kind of switch hits you and you become passionate and you become driven, all obstacles seem to just, it's no longer an obstruction. It's no longer an obstacle. It's something that you want to work out and get over the top of it. So that was that moment for me around that time when I thought, I am going to make these sales today, or these sales this weekend. So I calculated exactly how many I needed to make. So I took all of that amount of stock to the House of Fraser. and I got it all up, and I literally wouldn't let anyone walk past me without look. Obviously, as long as they were in my kind of demographics and things like that. And I became so driven and so determined that I literally had a queue of people to purchase, and I was getting them on the wrist and things like that. So going back to that was kind of the moment for me when
you feel as though there was a sense of intuition and natural charm where you were just bringing people in with your aura of passion and determinism that had brought people and attracted people to you, and therefore to the pop-up, and therefore to the product. Do you feel as though, because it's what's the word, it's like electric, if you've got that confidence and you've got that drive, people can feel it? And do you feel as though on that day when you had a line of people, did you feel this sense of euphoria and sense of, or did you feel as though, right, this is just one step of 1,000 steps? Has there ever been a moment for you where you felt, I'm at my peak? Or do you feel as though you're always rising? Or do you feel as though you're just constantly happy? Or if you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think there's 2 moments. Well, actually, I could say there's been 3 moments in the 3 years that I've been doing my business where those kind of moments come in. So at the House of Fraser, I had this electric of passion, driving, whatever, and getting people over. And I think it was honesty. I think one of the biggest things that in today's society, because of social media and the news and everything else like that, I think people want honesty. I think people want that sort of, yeah, I've been through that, or yeah, I agree with that kind of thing. So when I was in the House of Fraser, that was my first time really opening up to somebody in front of me about my mental health struggles and my mental health story, which is based around Sheba helping me get out of the house after I struggled with my mental health and things like that. So Sheba was the kind of conversation, I guess, around my watches. And I'll never forget, a woman said to me, I'm going to buy one of your watches because my son is currently at home, unable to leave the house. So I want to show him what can be achieved. That moment was for me of how important it is to talk about mental health. The second point in my business, in my life, was actually probably at a stage when I felt like this is my final chance. So although I had that big peak in 2018 where my brand kind of was put on the map locally and I was starting to get sales without having to knock on people's doors. Kind of around kind of in 2019, that peak just dropped and I wasn't getting a lot of sales a month. I had this brand new collection. I hired a marketing agency that did terrible. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong in 2019.
Murphy's Law.
And then in August 2019, I actually had a breakdown because of the stress. So I ended up actually in hospital in 2019. I am going back a little bit to my kind of mental health side of things. When I was 16, I struggled with panic attacks, anxiety, depression, agoraphobia, and a condition called phagophobia, which means you've got like a fear of choking on food.
Oh, right. I get that.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
And it's an awful thing. And what happened was when I had my kind of breakdown in 2019, in the August time, I went from size 12 in August to October being a size 6. So I'd lost a lot of weight very, very quickly because of my mental health. So mental health isn't something that goes away. It's something that's learned and managed and to cope with. In 2019, after those few weeks and after I started to get better, I remember I went to the Newcastle airport and I thought to myself, I have this amount left in cash flow. I have this amount of stock. I need to do something for me anyway, this is kind of my last chance. And I really, really felt that. And I felt really, really down about it. So I went to Newcastle Airport and I remember being stood in front of my billboard. I got a billboard in the bit where people can have coffees and things like that. Took a photo. My dad said, right, we'll go and have a coffee before we head back to where we live. So I sat down and I put the picture up on Instagram, put the picture up on Facebook, and I used a platform that I'd never really used before, which was LinkedIn. And And people on Instagram and Facebook kind of knew about my story, they knew about my business and things like that, but nothing really on LinkedIn. I thought LinkedIn was a place where it's all it is business, but all business and positivity. And I've just sold £1 million shares and all this sort of thing. And I thought no one's going to want to know about my little business and stuff. And I sat there for a second and I thought, the way that I was feeling is very much, this is my last chance. And I've always been such an honest person. Everything that I try and do, I try and be as authentic and as honest as I possibly can. And I generally just wrote a post from my heart. I didn't even think about what it was that I was writing. I generally wrote a post from my heart saying how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, how hard it is, to struggle with your mental health and cash flow. And this is me with my own billboard in Newcastle Airport and things like that. I remember putting it on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, and I thought nothing's gonna, whatever. Put the phone down. Phone's gone bing, bing, bing. I'm thinking, So I picked my phone up, look at it. Within an hour, I believe on LinkedIn, it had reached over 100,000 people.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
within 3 days, so honestly, it was like mayhem. Within 3 days, the post on Facebook had reached like so many people. The post on Instagram reached so many people. I was having followers every second. But then on LinkedIn, within 3 days, the post reached almost 2 million people.
That's a lot of people.
And within 3 days, I was in the local Gazette. And within 3 days, I was then put in the Mirror.
Yeah.
And I remember the kind of the title, and it says something about young girl who started business sleeping on sofas and things like that.
Yeah.
Because in the post, I spoke about the fact that I'd sold my car that year. I slept on the sofa for 6 months because I couldn't afford a bed.
Yeah.
And I was really, really struggling. And from that one little moment of feeling hopeless, not sure what I was going to do if this didn't work, in terms of just my business itself, to within a few weeks, I had investment. I was in every single podcast, newsletter, everything like that, to literally knocking out more orders than I was able to even cope with over Christmas. And then it was kind of from that into 2020, that's kind of where Ellington Timepiece is kind of gotten to that stage now where it needs further investment to get bigger and things like that. So I've had those moments throughout my business where you kind of sat thinking of, what do I do? What happens next?
Yeah. Did you did you feel as though you'd have been represented well in the media, or do you I can remember vaguely, and it's something along the lines of you had like £13 in your back pocket or something like that when you started the business. That's what I can remember. Do you feel as though, because obviously it's helped you quite a lot? Well, actually, what I was going to ask is, are you kind of a one-man army? You strike me as very driven and motivated and quite stoic in the way that you go about doing things. And is a lot of it done? So how did you go from being on the sofas? I bet you've told this story a million times, but how did you go from being on the sofas and there in I guess the struggle position to getting to that point where you were actually producing and manufacturing goods? Was that a lot done on your own, or was there a lot of support? I can imagine there was a lot of support, but how much do you feel as though is attributed to yourself, and how much do you feel as though there was a lot of background work? Do you feel as though it was a bit of both, or how was it for you?
I think going right from the start, it's always been me. When I'm passionate and when I'm driven about something, it's not always the best way to be. But you know that saying, if you want something done, do it yourself. I have that imprinted very much in my head. But I knew kind of over time I would have to hand things over to certain people so that I can do something else. I've been lucky and I've been unlucky with the people that I've worked with and the people that I've trusted and to get into the business. But I feel like every business owner has done that. I feel like every business owner has hired the wrong agency, hired the wrong person, thinking I'll just do it myself. Throughout the whole process, everything that you see in terms of the very, very start, the content, everything was done myself. I built my own website. I designed my own watches. I took my own photography. I used my own lighting, everything. But over time, I've found people and dropped people that haven't done a very good job as they said they would. I've found people and still have great connections with. So I've been lucky over time, but in terms of the pandemic really affected that in terms of expanding my team. I moved into an office. I was going to take on a personal assistant, and the brand was going to start to grow. The COVID hit. I left my office. I said to my personal assistant, I can't, you got to that stage where you can't have people, and you think, well, I need to do this myself. And unfortunately, I had to let it go. And I think every business owner, especially over the last year, has either had to reduce their team or become a one-man army, or a one-woman or one-man army, and things like that. But to answer your question, a lot of the stuff that I have done has been generally from my own fingertips, my own hard work, my own passion, my own drive to do it. So it's mainly been me, and then I've been lucky enough to have individual people.
I struggle with a team of 3 people, so you're doing a lot better than I've been able to do. That's honestly, that's really, really good. So that's honestly brilliant to hear. I'm genuinely interested in sounds a bit daft, but how do you design a watch? Because everybody knows what a watch essentially looks like. You've got a bracelet, a strap, a face, and the battery in the bottom generally. How would you start? What's the starting point for you? I'm guessing you have a basic outline of a watch design, and then do you just pull the ideas out of thin air and then implement it? Or is a lot of I'm guessing there's a lot of trial and error that goes into it, but where do you start and where do you end essentially? What's the process from start to beginning?
So I first, in order to get a collection, because I don't work by just individual kind of designs. My thing I've done has been very themed, very collections. So I will think of something that is unique. So it's got, in my head, it's not like a one particular kind of thing. It's kind of a bubble. Imagine a bubble with different words in. So it's got to be like unique. It's got to be clever. It's got to be beautiful. It's got to be authentic. All this sort of thing. And what I will then do is I get ideas in my head in terms of themes. So let me think of a theme. I don't know. Say if I was going to make a collection made of the rainbow, the nursery rhyme rainbow. So I would start off with the colour blue. Right, what would look good in it? What kind of theme am I going around it? And that's how I designed the Olympus collection, for instance. So I thought of the Olympian gods and goddesses. Now I was limited to kind of how many, the kind of gods and goddesses in a sense of having 6. But the Olympian gods and goddesses is about 50 of them. So I had to really, really think of the actual ones that are popular. So, Zeus, Poseidon, Apollo, and then the females are Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena. And they were all relatives in the story. So I thought they're the main ones, right? So how do I come up with the colours? Well, when I think of Zeus, I think of gold and I think of black. When you think of Hades, the god of the underworld, you think of deep, deep, dark colours. So that's the kind of next process. I then think of the colours. I then think, right, what can I design in the dial? I want it to be unique. I know, because each god has a symbol. So, for instance, Zeus has the lightning bolts, Poseidon has trident. I thought, right, I'm going to swap the traditional 12 for the symbol of the god and goddess. So then I do a very, very rough design. I send it over to a guy who's kind of a proper designer. So somebody that'll, whatever I've put on there, he'll then for me, and then I send it to the factory. Then I think, right, the next important thing is the authenticity certificate. So like amare, which is Latin to love, you think of wax sealing and red colours. So amare is red with a wax seal. With the Olympus collection, I did a scroll, and the box is white with like a stone effect. So when I think of my watches, I think firstly of the theme, then I think of the colours, then I think of whatever goes with it. And that's how I design my watches. Yeah,
I like that. I like that you're not there's a starting point, and the starting point is going to be indicative of what the watch is ultimately going to be. It's as if you've got the end product without having the product first. So you in your head, you know, this is the theme and this is going to be how the watch is represented. So it's not as if you're starting with a watch, or it's not as if you're making a watch. The watch is already there. It's just you're applying creativity to the watch, which is really good, because it goes to show that it's not as if you're just creating a watch. You're creating an individual characterized collection of sets that people will like and that have a story and a motive, which is great. It's really good that you're not just, you know, just making watches for the sake of it, mass producing them and not thinking about what they are or what they're going to represent. And, you know, I think that a lot of manufacturers do fall into that unfortunate category of they're just producing something because it exists, and then they don't think to add any personality or character to it. And that's the great thing with the types of designs that you're going for. It's got a theme, it's got a character, it's got a purpose and a motive that comes from an idea originally, which is brilliant. And I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to just ease my way out. So now you've bridged the gap. Now you went from watches to jewelry. Is that something that so when you started, I'm guessing that you started with watches and you started with the idea of watches. And did you ever foresee yourself moving on to jewelry? What was the motivation that's got you from watches into jewelry? Is it just a basic expansion, or was there some drive behind that?
There's actually a story behind it. So what happened was in 2019, when I was really struggling with my mental health, one of the things that I remember coping with when I was 16 was I used to write little notes to myself. So I used to say things like, "It's just a bad day," "You are loved," all that sort of thing. And I started taking pictures of the watches with the notes, just holding it up saying, "You are loved." And people were really responding to that quite well. And that was kind of where the mental health advocacy side of things started to really grow for me personally, and being more involved in kind of like mind and things like that. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be lovely if I had some jewelry just to go with, you know, something with the watches and things like that. And I remember back in 2018, I had a very brief moment with the Sheba watches where I had a bracelet and it was ETP and Ellington Timepiece, and they sold quite well, but I didn't think anything of it. And then it was kind of around in 2020 when I thought of those quotes that I did. What if they were on an actual piece? Like, what if people could actually wear something that says "You are loved"? So every time they look in the mirror and they're having a terrible bad day, as we all do, the father or the mother, whoever's bought them that, and saying "You are loved," or "You are enough," or, you know, "Never give up." And so I actually created these necklaces, which is actually behind me. And that was the kind of story around it. So no, I didn't think I'd really go into jewelry, but my aim from when I realized that I actually want to do this as a business, this isn't a hobby for me, I actually knew in my head that eventually my 10-year plan, or however many years, whether I was a CEO, whether I was still involved or something like that, it would expand into shoes and handbags and clothes, and it would just be Ellington or Ellington Timepiece, Ellington Jewelry. So for the jewelry for Ellington Timepiece at the moment is called Ellington Jewelry. So, and they've been extremely popular. And as I mentioned, you know, on the website, that when you buy a necklace, it was really important for me to give back, you know, for kind of what I've been able to do and to show people what can be achieved. And when you buy a necklace, a portion of proceeds go to a charity that help and raise awareness for those that are struggling with mental health. So for me, no, jewelry was never really an option. I think when I first started, I think I was just trying to get whatever I was doing off the ground and hope for the best. But especially in the last year, then I started to realise, kind of a year and a half, I think that I was right. This is a business now for me, and I want to keep doing it and expand into different areas. So the jewelry for me has become quite important, I think, to have a really good quality necklace. So they are like Swarovski crystal, sterling silver and things like that. So I wanted them to be as good of a quality as the watches as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. One second. Sorry about that. I'll tell you one thing: you've been blessed with the name Ellington because it sounds very opulent. It's such a nice name. Like I'm Potts, like I can't whack that on a watch. But it's honestly it's a very 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 nice name, and amongst everything else, it just sticks out. It's certainly it's suave, opulent, all those aesthetics. But yeah, I do think that you are representative of what is great when it comes to products and design, because you're not just the typical just creating for the sake of creating, or creating because you feel as though you want to create. You're creating because there's a motive, because there's a story, and your work will forever be indicative of that. You've come from that purpose, and you've came from the ground up, if like the Phoenix, and there has been that drive and passion that has came from a place of adversity, and due to that fact, it's probably never ever going to fall, because you've always got that drive, you've always got that motive and that story, and I think that's great, and you're a last of a dying breed amongst how products are created now, seriously. But I'm conscious of the time, so if I'm literally 10 seconds before the hour mark, so I've timed myself well there. But I really, really appreciate you coming on and speaking. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to speak to you again at some point.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.